A unique aspect of Seam's authorization is its rule-based authorization. It allows you to have declarative rules, so you take all that spaghetti business logic out of your Java and you put it into nicely written rules that are declarative in nature, but they're also contextual. So you can check, what is the current state of the application? Do you have a company that's associated with you? Do you have, what are the properties on the particular object you're trying to view? So we're going to look at the meat of the demo will be to look at this rule-based authorization and see how you can take advantage of it. And then finally, access control lists. While rule-based security could certainly handle most of the scenarios, it's nice to have access control lists for doing management from the front end. So if you're one user and you want to grant permission to the person who's in your company, you could say, okay, I'm going to bring up a permission management screen and I'm going to grant you the permission to access this. If you use rule-based security, you can't do that because you would have to be a developer on the application going in and modifying the rules. So you can see the difference is quite an important one. Once you have the authorization mechanism in Seam, you can do various places in the application. You can do declarative-based restrictions. So for instance, you could say, you can't view this page unless you're logged in. And this is in the Seam pages descriptor. You could also say, not only you have to be logged in, but you have to have the admin role. That's the second example up here. Within a page, you could say this region of the page you can't see unless you're logged in. And notice we access this identity component from the EL quite liberally to determine if you're logged in or if you have a role. You can also do this at the classes and methods. So let's say that the UI designer refactored the page and he or she deleted all of the restrictions. Now the user can pass right through to the back end. So you want to also restrict on the method levels. Seam has the restrict annotation, which works just like the one in the views. And then finally, if all of that is insufficient, you can always have the Java-based authorization. You just say, what you're probably doing today, weaved in with the identity component. You can just say, are you logged in? Then this block of code you can execute. If not, then you have to throw an exception or something like that. Okay, so let's say we're here and we have what we want to do is instead of specifically saying, do you have a role? Or are you logged in? We want to say, can you access this particular thing, whatever that thing is? So in Seam, there's something called a permission. And a permission consists of 3 elements. It's a target, so the thing you're trying to look at. An action, so what it is that the operation you're performing on that. And then finally the recipient, which would be you. And so Seam has to take those 3 and mix them together and see what comes out of the wash. And the way it does that is it puts it through this permission resolver chain. And there are 2 built into Seam. There's a persistence one, which is where your ACLs get checked. And then there's a rule-based one, which is where your rules fire. And then finally, you can add your own custom ones into this chain if you had some way of doing authorization. And at the very end, you return, this permission resolver chain returns either thumbs up or thumbs down, and they can see it. So it's quite flexible in the way that authorization is implemented in Seam. So while I'm showing you all these ways of using built-in authorization, you can add your own into this chain. So of course, none of this would be useful if there wasn't a way to manage it, right? So in Seam, there's also provided for you an identity and permission management framework. And they're primarily just the classes you would have needed to write if you wanted to manage the users, roles, and whatever the permissions might be. Now, one of the nice parts, going back about using the annotations on your entities to do authentication, is that when you activate that, Seam then also knows how to create users, delete users, and the whole CRUD operation. That's what this user search and user CRUD, role search and role CRUD are based on. The permission search and permission assignment are the ACLs. So those also have annotations, and they map very similarly to what I showed you with the member and the role. All right, now that we've been through all that, let's take a look at a demo. Let's just see this in action. So I've developed an application called Comps. And what Comps is, it's a design comp management system. So you would have a designing company and you would have your clients. And the design company would go in and upload one of the designs they've worked on, and then the client is going to log in and take a look at that design and maybe comment on it. I haven't implemented all the commenting, but you can get the idea of where we're going with this. So let's start off by saying, I'm going to go in, I want to upload a new design for, I'm Pixel Perfect, that's the name of my company, that's the design company. I wanted to upload a design for my client, eSecurity. So I go into the designs and I want to upload a design. Now obviously if I'm on this screen, and if you look in the upper right corner, it says login. So clearly, I have not proven that I am someone yet, that this application knows about. So when I click Upload Design, it's going to take me to the login page. This is what I was talking about in SIEM. This is part of the framework where SIEM throws a login authentication exception and says, you need to go to the login page. Now it's waiting for you to go back to that page. So you can see we can log in as a couple of different people here. So we'll log in as the designer. Now notice we're back to that page that we wanted to go to. And in the upper right hand corner we have signed in as designer. So I'm reading the identity component there and saying identity.username. Okay, now let's upload a design. So let's say we have an advertising design here. I can't spell. And we say this is a prototype. Oh, I already had one in there. Okay, so first of all, we don't want anyone to see the design. We don't want just anyone, some guest, to see the design. So if I were to log out here and go back to the company list for eSecurity, I'm not going to see any designs because we don't want to have this cross-company view. So then if I log back in as the designer, the question becomes, how can I see my own design? No one specified that I could see my own design, so how exactly is that happening? Well, this is where we dump into the rule-based security. So, first of all, we have a couple of rules here that I've shown. We're going to focus on just one of them. In this case, we want to say, first, upload design. So who can upload a design? Well, first, what we say is, the company that I am, the company that I'm with, and the company that I'm trying to upload to has to be my client. Okay, so that's what this says in Drupal syntax. It says, get the company of the current member and see if your company, the company of that member, this is the client of that company. And if that's the case, allow them the upload action. And so then what we do is we apply that action in either our view using a restrict inside the view, maybe around the button, or we could put this on the method that processes the upload. Now, once I upload, how can I view my own design? Well, that's another rule. In that case, we say the owner of the design must be the person who's logged in. And then they're allowed to view it. So we can see here that the rules are allowing us to do not just, are you an editor? Are you a designer, for instance? We're saying, is this your design? Then if it is, well, obviously you can see it. Now you don't have to worry about things like grants on your own things.